In this video, I'm going to show you how I'm using vibe coding as a method to bring my product ideas to life. I'm using vibe coding to create prototypes to share my product ideas with engineers and with colleagues. I'm using it to create entire applications for myself and also for others. And that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video. I'm basically showing you how I've created this application here. It is still a prototype, it's not a fully functioning app. But before I do this, I want to talk a little bit about why vibe coding is such a useful and elegant method to quickly bring ideas to life. If you want to jump directly into the building part, feel free to skip the next 5 minutes. I promise I will be brief. So first of all, a little bit of why I should vibe code as a product builder. First of all, for me personally, every time I'm seeing an idea, it makes it more real. There are usually quite a few gaps in my thinking and in my imagination. And by building a prototype or a vibe coded app, those gaps will be exposed. And that basically allows me to improve my idea. Or if it's not such a great idea, I can easily throw it away and don't waste my time with that. That's also an option. I can share my ideas without losing any fidelity, because usually when you share an idea with someone else, either through explaining it or writing it down, you are relying on the imagination of the other person. And you will never know, what the other person will picture in their head. So showing a prototype, you stay in control how the other person will perceive and see your idea. You will basically have the same understanding and visualization of your product idea. Vibe coding for me is a forcing function for clarity, because the prototype that you are creating is reflecting how complete and how clear your ideated product is already. It will basically lead to better specifications, especially once you hand this over to an engineering team to build your app in the work context, or for yourself when you actually take your prototype and want to make this into a production app. So clarity will definitely benefit from vibe coding. And most importantly for me, vibe coding is a lot of fun. I became a product manager, a product builder, because I really enjoy building applications and software. And what vibe coding is doing for me, it's freeing me from any dependencies from other people that I need to rely on. And I can just build things in my own time based on my own flow. When I'm building an application through vibe coding, I do this in 3 phases. I specify the app that I want to build. I ultimately build it, at least the initial version of it, and then I'm iterating. And I will show you a little bit what each phase looks like. Let's start with specification. I already created an entire video of how you can turn an initial product idea into a product one-pager, into a product requirements document. I will link this video up here in the corner. And with that input, you have the perfect specification in order to express your idea in a way that an AI agent can turn it into a prototype or an entire application. So there are usually 3 types of how you can bring high quality input into your AI agent. The most common one, and probably also most accessible one for everyone, is the spec-driven prototyping or vibe coding. Basically, your words, your language are the main method in order to specify what you're trying to build. So a product requirements document, a technical design document, any form of expression of what you want to build is what falls into this category. And my method of workshopping a product requirements document with AI is probably one of the most information dense ways of providing really high quality input for your prototypes. But there's also design-based prototyping, especially if you're already a designer and you are experienced in, for example, working with Figma or creating wireframes, and some people even do hand drawings. That is also very valid and useful input in order to describe your idea. So you should just use that. And for more technically minded people, engineers, if you can provide your input in a very data-driven way, for example, by describing data structures, by showing entity relationships, or even visualizing data flows, that's again a very valid and useful method in order to specify your app and provide useful input. Ideally, you combine all three of those methods, but that's not for everyone. So whatever is available to you, use this. Use the method that feels most natural to you and where you're most experienced in. Second phase is the actual building. Here, our AI agent will do the heavy lifting, but we still have a job to do. For example, we need to select the agent harness. Harness might be a term that not everyone is familiar with in this context. It's basically, the agent harness is basically what the kitchen is to a chef, yeah? To make an easy metaphor here. So the chef has a recipe book, which is the system prompt for an AI agent. The chef has stove and knives. These are basically the tools the AI agent has access to. There are certain types of ingredients available for a chef to cook a meal. So that's the context the AI has available. And the chef has a ticketing system in order to process the different orders that are coming in. And that's the interface where the AI agent is interacting with the user. So a simple way of saying this is that a harness is turning a brain into a worker. Yeah? So hopefully that makes sense. To give you some examples here, there are some very easy and approachable web-based harnesses like Lovable and Bolt. Those vibe coding platforms represent the lowest barrier to entry for building prototypes and apps. There are IDE-based agent harnesses. The most popular one is probably Cursor. Google recently released Anti-Gravity, also a very good agent harness within an IDE. My personal choice is or are terminal-based harnesses like Claude Code, which is my harness of choice these days, but also Codex. I feel like they are giving me maximum flexibility and power and capabilities because a terminal allows the agent to use, I feel like, an unlimited number of tools in order to achieve whatever needs to be achieved. So my recommendation here would be, if you are comfortable with launching a terminal, use Claude Code. It really is, from my experience, based on my experience, the most powerful and approachable agent harness that exists today. In the building phase or during the building phase, you are also providing access to MCP servers. So these are external tools the AI agent will be able to use. For example, I, in most cases, provide access to Context 7, which is an MCP server that provides up-to-date documentation for things like libraries, SDKs, frameworks, these kind of things. I usually give access to the Google Chrome developer tools through their MCP server, so the AI agent can test whatever it built directly in a browser. But it's also, if you're using an external SDK or service that you are using through an API, you need to provide the token for accessing that API. Usually for a locally run prototype, an environment file is totally fine for that. If you are working within a design system, provide that as context. So that's an entire video that I want to do at some point. And if you have any other useful context, provide this, but be mindful of how much you provide and how it might steer and influence the agent in a way that you're not controlling. So sometimes less is more when it comes to context. One thing, once you start building, start with using the planning mode if this is available in your agent harness. Claude Code provides this, anti-gravity does. It's basically a way for the AI agent to completely think through how it wants to build your desired application or prototype, and is putting together a very detailed plan that you can review, that you can change, that you can ask clarifying questions. The AI agent sometimes is asking clarifying questions in order to make some design decisions or technical decisions. So when a planning mode is available, always start with that. And the last phase, and this is really an open-end phase, is iterating. You can spend hours, days, even months iterating on an existing prototype or app. Once you got the initial prototype from your AI agent, it's not the end of your vibe coding journey. It's really the beginning. You made it to the starting line, so to speak. And this is where you improve. For me, this is also a magical moment, because for the first time, I'm seeing the idea that was kind of trapped in my mind before for the first time. And it's really one of the greatest experiences I can imagine as a product builder, seeing an idea come to life. So enjoy that magic moment. And once you start iterating, I would suggest that you do it one change at a time. It just helps the agent to be very focused on a single task, and you will be clearer in your instructions of what you want the agent to do. So that's why my recommendation is one change at a time. For smaller things, it's totally fine to do 2 or 3 and list them, like formatting issues, stuff like that. But in general, take it slow. Also important here, it's really worth learning the basics of Git, so you have the ability to create regular checkpoints in your vibe coding journey, because you might not like the direction in which a prototype is evolving over time, and you want to be able to go back to a previous checkpoint and start over from there instead of starting over from scratch entirely, especially once you've spent multiple days working on an idea. It's worth it. So Claude and any other AI agent can use Git for you. So you don't need to actually learn all the details of Git on the command line, for example. But it's one of the things that I would recommend to anyone. It just improves your entire vibe coding experience a lot if you are able to use Git yourself. There's some cool other solutions out there outside of Git, like stateful sandbox containers, for example, that have versioning and public URLs. There's a recent release of something called sprites.dev, which is really fascinating. I haven't tested it yet, but looks very promising. So that's also something you can explore. Before we now head into actually building the application that I've showed you, some battle-tested best practices from me before we get started. As I mentioned earlier, I have this AI skill that allows you to create a product requirements document through a workshop with AI. I think that's one of the best ways to create product requirements documents these days, with proper acceptance criteria for your user stories. So I really would recommend doing that, just providing a minimal spec, a minimal idea, and then workshopping with AI. And you can use my AI skill for that if you want. Once you've got your first version of the prototype from your AI agent, and you feel like it's not really following all your specification, you can actually use another AI agent, either the same model or another model, to review your prototype and compare it against the specification, create a list of what are still differences between spec and prototype, and then use that output of that comparison to feed back into your coding agent and have it implement those things. So that's a really nice closed loop in order to create prototypes. If you're already using Figma, for example, at work, you should know that they have an MCP server, which allows you to connect the AI agent to Figma. So you can implement a design that you have in a Figma file directly through this protocol. Really powerful. I use it all the time. You should if you use Figma. Smaller tip here, if you're using terminal-based agents, I like to use them within an IDE like VS Code or Cursor, for example, because you will see the files it creates. You can have them open in a document as a document and just edit them manually. So that makes working with files and terminal-based agents so much easier. And last but not least, that's something I learned the hard way. Don't build your prototype in those synced cloud syncing folders like iCloud Drive, Dropbox, Google Drive, because especially if you're building applications that make use of Node.js and the package manager, you can end up with thousands of files within a short amount of time, and all of them need to be hashed, which is really hard on CPU. So you will struggle even with the most powerful MacBook to keep up with this. I learned this the hard way, always wondering why my computer is so slow. That's why. Use Git in a non-sync directory. That's much safer. Okay. This is everything I had before we now jump in, because ultimately vibe coding is something that you need to practice. So I will show you in the next step of how I'm creating the specification, how we'll use the specification to create the app that I've shown you. So see you over there. Okay, so we know the first step is providing the specification for creating the prototype. And what I'm using here is my AI agent skill for creating product requirements documents. Requirements documents are the type of specification that I'm most experienced with. I spent many years writing many PRDs in my career so far. And you will be able to use this based on my tutorial on productized tech within the AI-enabled product builder. There's an entire YouTube video that walks you through how to do that and what a good product requirements document looks like at the end of the workshop, because that's the main part of that skill, that you're basically workshopping with another AI agent the contents and the details of your idea in order to create this full product requirements document. You will be able to find this in my GitHub repository for the AI-enabled product builder. There's actually one subfolder here for the product requirements document. And within there, you can find the skill.md file that you can use for Claude in particular. But there's also a GPT for ChatGPT and a gem for Gemini that you can use if this is what you want to do. I've already used the Gemini gem as an experiment in order to create a new product requirements document for an idea that I'm about to build. And I've copied the output of Gemini's work here into Cursor, which is the IDE that I'm using. You can see there's a terminal below the window that I can use. So let me give you a brief overview of what we are building. Let's use the executive summary for that actually. So my application, I named it Genesis. Genesis is a local web application that helps product managers transform ideas into comprehensive product requirements documents through AI-guided workshops. The application addresses the core problem that PRDs are time-consuming to create, leading product managers to settle for good enough documents without fully exploring ideas or describing them in sufficient detail. So if you followed my other tutorials and videos, you will notice that this is kind of the theme of what I'm trying to do here, get from an idea to a fully fleshed out product requirements and ultimately to a prototype and entire application. So I'm basically trying to productize what I've done with Claude Code in the past, with skills and Gemini gems into an entire application now. So that's what we are trying to build. You can see my specification is quite extensive. It's 500 something lines of rows of text. And it contains additional context about what is my business rationale behind building this, what's the value for the customer, what's the business for me as the business building this, some technical context. And what I will do next is basically write this initial prompt to initiate the building. So that is the second phase of vibe coding. And I've prepared an initial prompt here that I want to show you and walk you through a little bit. So let me read this to you before we execute it. So my prompt is, I want you to create a detailed implementation plan for this application that is described in product requirements document.md and the referenced system prompts. So this first sentence is telling the AI agent that its first task is actually creating an implementation plan. So we'll execute this in plan mode in Claude Code. And I'm pointing it towards the product requirements document that contains all the context of what it needs to build. So I'm not trying to explain again in a shorter way of what it's trying to do. I'm just pointing it towards that document, and it will then load it into this context. So all the high quality input that I'm giving stays consistent within this one single document. Okay, let's go on. You have access to 2 MCP servers. One gives you access to the Chrome web browser, so it can review your own creation in there. And the second one, Context 7, gives you access to up-to-date information and documentation for all SDKs, libraries, and APIs. I want you to make sure that you use the latest version of all external services that you're using, especially the APIs that you are using to build this functionality. Okay, so this part is where I'm providing additional context and access. So the 2 MCP servers I mentioned before, Chrome and Context 7. I'm already mentioning that I want the latest version of all external libraries to be used. This will be particularly true for the Anthropic and OpenAI SDK that I'm going to implement here in this application. That's part of my requirements in the requirements document. And here I'm basically making sure that it is a bit smarter of how it approaches this by using the MCP server. So that's important type of steering that I'm doing for the AI agent. And it's something I recommend you do. And then last but not least, there's something Claude specific here. I'm asking it to use the front-end design skill. That's something that Anthropic is providing out of the box for Claude Code, and it just leads to better front-end design. So with that, let's copy this in the clipboard. I can launch my Claude Code instance here in the folder where the documents are. By the way, I didn't mention yet that I have 3 other Markdown files in here. I'm actually referencing those in the requirements document because they contain the system prompts that my application will use when it's workshopping one-pagers and product requirements documents with you. So I created them outside as additional context, and I don't want to leave this to chance for Claude to create them. So I'm providing them referencing in the requirements document. So without further ado, I will paste the initial prompt in here that we've just reviewed together. I will enter plan mode with Shift Tab twice. So that activates plan mode for Claude Code. And when I'm hitting enter, it will now start planning. I will just let it do its work now, and I will be back to you once the plan is available. Okay, after a couple of seconds, Claude came back with some questions. And that's actually one of the features that I really like in Claude Code, that it's asking these clarifying questions regarding implementation details, sometimes design details. So let's see what it's asking here. What front-end framework would you like to use for this applications? Next.js, Vite, Svelte. Let's use Next.js. Second question, how should the backend API layer be structured? Next.js API rules, Express.js server, Electron app. Since we already have Next.js, I will use this. And last question, what styling approach would you prefer? Tailwind, CSS modules plus design system, Shadcn plus Tailwind. actually like the pre-built Shadzy and components, so I'm using those, submitting the answers, and now Claude will use this as additional context when it's coming up with the plan. So if you are not comfortable with making those technical decisions, you can actually tell Claude by typing your answer saying, hey, I don't know what kind of decision I should make here. I have no idea about those technologies. Just choose for me. So that's totally fine. You don't need to know. But as someone with a bit of a technical background, this is your chance to steer it. You can actually do one additional thing here. If you want real control over the technical implementation details, I do have a skill in my AI-enabled product builder course that is called the technical design document. And that's a skill that allows you to really create technical design docs that contain a detailed guide of how to build an application. And that's another skill that workshops with you all those technical details. So if you're a technical person, that one is for you. Feel free to use it. So now Claude is asking me for permissions to read certain directories and use certain tools, and I will just allow it within this project. I will keep allowing things, and I will be back here once the plan is finished. Claude thought about the implementation plan for the last 4 minutes, and it's now coming back to me with additional questions, which sometimes happens after it thought through all the details and realized, oh, there are still some things where I should involve the user in the implementation details. And it just did this, and I want to show you. So first question is, where should the application store document files on the user's machine? In a project folder, in a user's document folder, or a configurable path? I actually think configurable would be nice here. So let's choose option 3. Next question, should the application include real-time collaboration, or is this strictly single user? Single user only, future collaboration support. For now, it's single user. That's fine. I might implement something else in the future. But yeah, these are the kind of last decisions that I need to make before Claude now finally comes back with a plan. Okay, the plan is ready after roughly 6 minutes in total, I would say. Let's make our terminal here a little bit bigger and scroll up. No worries, we won't read the entire plan together, but I want to give you an overview of what it usually looks like. This is, by the way, a markdown file that sits inside Claude's directory. So you can actually open this with a text editor and manually edit it or read it in a different application if this is not good enough here. So you can see that it gives me an overview of what it thinks it builds. The app has 3 modules: idea capture, one-pager workshop, and PRD workshop. That's correct. It gives me an overview of the tech stack using Next.js, Tailwind, Zustand as the state management tech, Anthropic Claude API for the workshops, that's correct. OpenAI Whisper API for voice transcription, also correct. And it stores everything as markdown files with YAML front matter. That's exactly as I specified in my requirements document. It's giving me an outline of the structure of the application that it will build. So that's good. File naming conventions, the YAML front matter, the configurable storage path, the API routes, and so on. Then it's outlining the implementation phases it will follow. I mean, it's a pretty complex application, so it makes sense that it actually breaks it down into multiple phases here. So that's good. And after the phases, we have an overview of the key data flows. It found the environment variables I provided for the API key, and then there's a checklist that it will use. Okay, and what I can do now is either say yes to the plan, auto accept edits, and it will work for probably quite a few minutes. I can make some edits to the plan. I can ask clarifying questions to actually have Claude change things. So this is really the important milestone within your build phase, so the second phase of vibe coding, where we really need to go back and forth on this plan until you are satisfied. The quality of the prototype that will come out on the other end of this work will definitely benefit from this. For this demonstration here, I will just auto accept the plan and have it implemented. I actually built this application before, and I will later compare the results. So auto accept edits, and off we go. And I will be back as soon as Claude finished the first iteration of that application. Okay, as you can see, Claude is done working. I had lunch in the meantime, and the AI did all the heavy lifting. The application is already running locally on port 3000. Before this, I provided the environment file with the API keys, so that's already done. And I've configured the document storage path in the same environment file. So let's take a look at what Claude built for us. This is the initial version of Genesis it just came up with. You can see it has a pretty nice UI, I would say. It has the 3 sections that I wanted it to build out: ideas, one pages, and PRDs. Let's test creating a new idea. So this is the chat-based interface. Okay, a bit of a UI issue here, but it's easy to fix. This is a test of the voice input functionality. Let's see if transcription is working. Okay, it is working. Sending. This looked like it's staying in its role. Let's add a second message here. Okay, enter isn't working. That's something I will fix. So smaller issues so far. Okay, let's say I want to save this now as an idea. Okay, here's our first real bug. It can't save the document, so I would need to look into this. But all in all, this is exactly what I was hoping for. So yeah, it's creating a summary that works, but storing isn't working. Okay, we saw this. So I would say this is pretty impressive, considering that this is really just the first version immediately after our initial prompt. So basically the one-shot result of our vibe coding attempt here. In my second tab here, I have my first attempt of building this application working. So same requirements document led to this, same process, also Claude Code. But this one already represents the result after phase 3, which is iterating. So I would say I spent 2 to 3 hours iterating on my initial attempt of building this application and ended up with this. And I at least wanted to show you what it can look like if you invest a little bit more time in this. So let's say I want to capture a new idea, get started, and start dictating whatever is on your mind. You can express all your ideas in your natural voice here. You can even ramble a little bit and be chaotic, which is fine. That's exactly the idea behind this, that it, just flows out of your head into AI. So it's transcribing this. I can hit send, and the AI has that now in its context. It's ready to capture my thoughts. I can add a second message here, hit send, note it, and when I'm done capturing, it will send a predefined prompt. Okay, now the AI is being smart, telling me it looks like the message so far. We're just testing. I'd like to capture a real idea. Feel free to. Okay, I have some prompt engineering to do here. I would say that it's not trying to be too smart. Let's see if it actually works. I actually want this to be stored. This test message is the document that I want to capture as an idea. So please go ahead. Let's see if we can convince it. Okay, it's now creating a document, and that's exactly what I've implemented. It's basically using a tool in the background to create a markdown file. That is the preview. I can now edit this or save it. It's working, document is safe. I can open it. You can see my original notes here. So basically what I dictated. You can see the AI summary of it, which is obviously completely dumb in this case because it was just a test message. I can edit this in Markdown, have a preview here, save it again if I want. And once I'm ready to turn this captured idea into a one-pager, I can actually do this here by clicking Create One-Pager. And this is now loaded into the context of a new application. And I can say something like, let's start the workshop of creating a product one-pager. So it should now start guiding me through this conversation. Got it. Let's build your product one-pager from what you've shared. Okay. This is just the example, but you get the trick. I just wanted to show you the result of iterating in phase 3 based on the specification that we provided as a PRD. And I think given that I've invested more or less 3 to 4 hours in this, okay, you probably need to count the specification phase, which is another hour. It's a pretty impressive result, at least from my point of view. You need to be a judge of that. And that's my tutorial for vibe coding. I hope I was able to show you how to bring an idea to life by using this method. We together developed an entire application, still a prototype that's running on my local machine, but it has the potential to become an actual application later on. We went through 3 phases to do this. We specified what we want to build by creating a product requirements document. And I was using my AI skill for workshopping product requirements documents for that. Then we gave it an initial prompt to build this application. We saw what this application looks like after the initial build. And I've shown you after, let's say, 3 hours of iteration, what this can become, how this can become an actual application. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm hoping that this was useful for you. I will follow up with more advanced techniques in other videos. So please let me know if you have any questions, and if you want to learn something, I'm happy to provide that kind of content. Thank you for watching.